Alrighty, hello everyone and welcome to our virtual sales faculty panel. We're so excited to have everyone back here today, as well as our guest professors. Thank you so much for coming and joining HP today. I just want to say that these professors, I've had the honor of knowing and maybe not having the classes with, but just to have heard such amazing things. And so I really hope to our students that you take this time to really listen to our professors and hear what they have to say and any advice that they can share with you. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with our professors. If you could introduce yourselves, so your names, pronouns, your role at St. Mary's, or your expertise at St. Mary's, as well as a brief, this is a lot, so as well as a brief educational/career background, and also identify if you are a first-gen or low-income student. And we'll just popcorn.
I guess I'll start. I see myself at the top, so I'll start. Hi, everybody. I'm Professor Inez Wilson-Hurst. Pronouns are she, and her. I am a professor in the sociology department. I also am a member of the faculty advisory board for the ethnic studies program, which is just amazing. It's a fantastic group of people, and we have amazing students. So if you have any interest in Soc or ES, please, please, please get in touch with me. I'm also a FIAC HP advisor, so I'll be meeting some of you more in person. I have had some emails with you, some of you already, but I'll be meeting you all more in the next week or so. I forget all the questions, so I'll just give a little brief bio, I guess. My undergrad, I did my undergrad at Occidental College in Los Angeles, double major history and sociology. I knew at that point I wanted to go into education, but I thought I wanted to teach young kids, and I applied to and was accepted to Teach for America. I taught in East Oakland for 5 years, loved teaching, loved my kids, but didn't love teaching little kids. So at that point, made the decision to go to grad school. My master's and PhD are from University of Southern California in sociology, and have been really lucky to be here at St. Mary's. I got my my little 15-year specialty gift last year. So I've been at the college for 15 years, and just excited to meet the new students and welcome all of you to St. Mary's. It is a different situation for all of us, and know that this is as awkward and strange and out of our wheelhouse as it is for you. But there's been so much happening on campus with student leaders and faculty and staff to really try to welcome the new students as much as possible and to make this a really amazing year, just as it would be if we saw each other face to face. Looking forward to meeting you all more, and I'll pass it on to one of the other professors here.
I can go. Thanks, Professor Hurst. I am Professor Michael Viola. I am an associate professor in the Justice, Community, and Leadership program. Before I give a little bit more about myself, I want to say thank you to Janae and to Jazzy and to the amazing individuals who are coordinating the orientation. And I feel honored to be a part of this and to have the opportunity to virtually meet folks. And I've been teaching now at St. Mary's for I think I'm going on my 6th year now. And the thing that brings me the most life has been the ability to work with amazing students in my program and beyond. And so I teach in a program that's interdisciplinary, the Justice, Community, and Leadership program, where I had the opportunity to work with and to learn with Jazzy. But then I'm also on the advisory board with Inez and or Professor Hurst and Professor Miller with the Ethnic Studies program. And so in those two programs, I've had the privilege of collaborating and learning with a lot of amazing first-gen HP students. A little bit about my background. I grew up in the Central Valley. I grew up in Fresno. And then I've been all around the West Coast primarily working. So let me backtrack. I got my undergraduate degree at UC Davis, and I studied community and regional development there, and then also got a minor in religious studies. And then after I got my undergraduate degree there, I went back home and I did AmeriCorps in Selma, California, where I did community-based work, and I was helping small business owners in the area. And so from there, that experience led me to think about issues of this idea of community development and like who defined those terms, who was at the table in directing ideas of what development looks like. And it brought me to my master's work, kind of exploring some of those questions, where I went to the University of Oregon for my master's in international studies and then also in public policy. And then from there, I was really thinking about like all these issues that I'm thinking about around issues of knowledge production, around issues of community development. And constantly, I felt like my history as a child of immigrants from the Philippines, why was it always at best a footnote in kind of centering and understanding my own history and my own community experience? Why was it that the huge role that Filipino Americans played in the Central Valley and contributing to this country was not in our curriculum? And that led me to get my further my studies around those kind of questions at UCLA in urban schooling. And so I've worked with teaching composition in high school with high school students. I've helped worked at a community or at a nonprofit organization doing after school programming in Seattle, where I was prior to coming to St. Mary's. But having the ability to work with some really amazing students is such a huge honor. And again, I'm looking forward to collaborating with you all further and getting to know you all in classes or in advising. And I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague, Dr. Amissa Miller.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I taught in the SAILS program last summer. Actually, I taught a section of seminar, and it was such a wonderful experience. So I'm really grateful and really honored to be virtually with you all today, and to welcome you to our campus community. And even though we can't have that welcome take place in person, I totally trust that Janae and the team are crafting an incredible welcome and orientation experience for you. So I'm just really glad to be a part of it. I'm Amissa Miller, and I'm going into my third year teaching at St. Mary's, so I'm still fairly new. I teach in the Performing Arts Department, and specifically I teach in the theater program. So our department has a music program, a dance program, and a theater program, and so I teach theater. My background in theater is primarily in the work of both playwriting and script development, new play development. I also occasionally direct, and every other year will direct a play on campus at St. Mary's. And then the other area of my practice is sort of broadly what we might call theater for social justice. And so that looks sometimes like a practice called interactive theater, where we are using acting techniques, storytelling techniques to collectively in community address issues that matter to us, and to try out, play out different scenarios, different solutions to those issues within our community. So that's work that I have done in the past and work that I will be teaching at St. Mary's this spring, and I'm really excited to teach that class. I was born in Philadelphia, and then my family moved to Portland, Oregon when I was 9. So I mostly grew up there, and had a really rough experience, felt very isolated there. I don't know if that's still true, but when I was there, it was the whitest major metropolitan area in the country. And so when it was time for me to go to college, I knew that I really wanted an experience where that would not be the case, where I could be in Black community and could learn about Black legacies as it related to theater and performing arts, which has always been my love. So I went to Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia for undergrad. Spelman is a historically Black college for women. And I studied theater there. I also studied Spanish there. And then after undergrad, I went to New York, because when you're into theater, that's what everyone tells you to do. You go to New York. So I went to New York, and I went to graduate school there to study dramaturgy and script development. And I did that at Columbia University. While I was in graduate school, I started doing work as a teaching artist. So I was working at a high school in the Bronx in an after-school program where I got to have the opportunity to work with young people in a school where there really was not any arts programming, and to craft original works of theater that came from them and their stories and their interests and what was on their minds. And I really loved that work. And that was sort of how I recognized that in addition to making work as a theater artist, I also saw myself being an educator and a teacher. And so I've been teaching theater both at the college level and then in youth and community spaces ever since. I really love the collaborative nature of what I do. And at St. Mary's, when I get to teach theater or get to direct a production with students, we really get to work together as collaborators. And so in the production that I directed this past fall, I had students working as my lighting designers and my sound designers and my stage managers, right? And all of these other really crucial roles in production. And, you know, for me, it feels like such a great way to kind of break down hierarchies and to really welcome everyone to bring their own contributions and their own inspiration to the work. So I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in non-hierarchical spaces and non-hierarchical pedagogy. So I try to do that as much as I can, both in the classroom and in the rehearsal space. And I think St. Mary's is a place where you'll find that there are lots of other faculty, including the faculty that are on this call with you, who have a similar approach. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for having me. I got cut off a little bit earlier because my connection is wonky, so I don't know if anyone else hasn't introduced themselves. Oh, okay, great. I'm gonna pass it off to you, Professor Kurji.
Hi, everybody. My name is Professor Kurji. I teach in the chemistry department. I'm an assistant professor. I'm about to start my fourth year, sort of. It's like my 3.5 year because I took spring semester off. I had a baby, so I missed how everybody had pandemic. Thanks for the snaps. She's here, by the way, so you're gonna probably hear her in the background, just so you know that screaming is not like a pet dying. It's my child. Anyway, okay, yeah, so I'm new to remote teaching. I'm new to Zoom and all of those sorts of things. I think we can work it out. But if you are thinking about all this, we're all new to this too, right? We've all just had the same amount of time trying to figure this stuff out. So you'll probably see a more personal side of your professor. Like, you even see my living room, right? That's kind of weird. And I think hopefully it's a way for us to make connections that way out, because we can't meet in person as much or at all. So that, I think, will be an interesting way of having a teacher-student relationship that we haven't had before. And I'm hoping that it at least will enhance some of the stuff that, some of the barriers that we have been facing in general. Okay, so my pronouns are she, her, hers. I went to Cornell as an undergraduate. I took a year off. It's actually funny, I took a year off and I ended up teaching in a tutoring center and traveling some. And so I think it's interesting how all the professors found some avenue into teaching that connected us to go back to graduate school, because you can only become a professor typically if you have a PhD. So I went back for my PhD in chemistry at Caltech in Southern California, in Pasadena. And I postdoced for a few years, and then I arrived here at St. Mary's. I'm not a first-generation student, but my family's Canadian, and they all live in Canada. All my cousins went to university in Canada. My parents went to university in the UK, and so I was very, very new to the American system. I didn't know what a freshman or a sophomore or a junior was. We don't use that terminology, right? There was a lot of things that didn't translate from Canadian universities where they pay by credit, for example, as opposed to pay a big chunk of tuition. So even the financial aid stuff, my family was very new at filling out those forms. So I had to learn some of the what we call hidden curriculum that sometimes gets passed down because your parents went to college or your sister was just there and she knows all these things. I had to learn some of that even though I'm not a first generation college student. So hopefully that can be a place where if I can remember some of those things from back 15 years ago, I will try to share all of those things as well. What else? Oh, so my research is on, so I'm a chemist, so I make materials. And I make materials that can, if you shine light on it, you can bend them. So they move even though you're not actually touching them. And you can imagine like a surgical instrument where you need it to like circulate its way through the body, but you can't like bend it. So you would shine light up a fiber and you sort of make it move. Because I make materials that you can see and that they move, I like this connection with art. So I focus also on what we call STEAM. So it's STEM plus art, basically, and how we connect things like origami, which folds, which is kind of like my material, or wire art, which is fibers that kind of have to hook in together and make a 3D shape. So I think about three-dimensional thinking and shapes, and I try to have my research students work on those sorts of things. I love having students in the lab. So if any of you are scientists, please come and talk to me. Obviously, this year is a weird one, but you may not, in your first year here, you may not do research, but in your second year and on, that may be something if you are science majors that you would want to do. And one of the ways it works is you sort of talk to a professor. You say, I heard you do X, Y, and Z. It sounds kind of cool. Do you have space for an independent study research student? Can I apply to the summer research program and all those sorts of things? And then you get into working in the lab. So those of you who are science majors, that's something you want to keep in the back of your mind. Right, that's fine.
Thank you all so much for those introductions, such amazing things that you all have done and are doing. So we're gonna go into our questions, and this is just a heads up that we will be saving 10 minutes at the end for any student questions. So students, if you have those questions, feel free when we get to those last 10 minutes to utilize the chat function, and we will move right along. So I'm gonna put the question in the chat. But the question is, how can students explore their academic and professional interests during their first year? We also have a diverse group of first year students and transfer students, so answer that for both if you can at St. Mary's.
Are there any scientists in the house? Can you all raise your hands, put the raise hand function in so I can see if you are, or even like the thumbs up because that'll disappear over time. See who's a scientist. Yeah, I see some hands up. Okay, a few. So for those of you who are in science in your first year, one of the things that we do recommend is you start, first of all, going to office hours. You've probably heard a lot about office hours already, but basically the professor is like, we are required to hang out and wait for students to come by. If we were an actual office, I'd be sitting in my office in Brousseau on campus, and I'd be really bored unless somebody came by and talked to me. Now I'm like in my house, sitting in front of my computer, really bored unless someone comes to talk to me. So please do, in fact, sort of start. One of the cool things about St. Mary's is the small classes where you can make personal connections. And so we want to take advantage of that. Right, you want to go and hang out at your professor's office hours. Oftentimes, if you have questions, that's a great place for those. If you have homework questions or if you're writing a paper and those sorts of things, you want your professor's input before it's due. That's a great place for that. That's sort of what it's designed for, but it's also designed for those other conversations. Hey, I want to be a physical therapist. Do you have other students who've done that before? Have you written letters of recommendation for them before? What do what do I need to do for all those sorts of things, the more you sort of talk to your professor, the more they can help you, right? If an opportunity comes across my desk and I was just in office hours and said, I'd really like forensic science, and now there's an internship coming, I'm going to paste it to my whole class, but I'm also going to send it specifically to the person who's already sort of talked to me. So as much as you can, like, sort of make the connections. It's hard this year. I'm really sorry that you can't just walk by an office, but maybe we call it activation energy in science. If you have to, there's a hump you have to travel over, maybe actually zooming in from your car or something is less scary than knocking on a door for a professor. So try it if you can. Obviously your lives are busy, but you can also tell your professor, none of these office hours work for me. Can we meet separately? And we're all usually very happy to do it. It may take a little while to find some time to make it work. In this particular time, a lot of us won't have childcare and things like that. So my kid is going to show up at all of my office hours, and that's just the way it's going to be. But we've worked out how she'll hang out for class, but office hours are just going to be a little more en famille, I guess. So that's the thing I'd say, is just sort of try to meet us, try to hang out with us, try to see us as a resource as opposed to somebody sort of scary who is grading you, right? I don't care what you got on the test unless you want to talk about it, right? I don't. I don't care what you, if you're struggling, except in that, how can I help you, right? And some people get really embarrassed if you do really poorly. I don't want to see the professor, but I won't remember right away. I have 35 students or whatever. I remember right away, you got a 5 out of 10. And if I do, it's only so that I can help you. All right, so that's my soapbox.
I would add to that. The two ideas that come to my head in trying to address that is to imagine and to advocate. I think that right now, it's really exciting to be in this space, and I think there's a tension. Let me just name that, in the sense that you are in a really exciting time where you get to imagine what you are going to do in terms of your focus, in terms of your studies, and how that's going to render itself into training for a future career. And I think that with that, you have the opportunity to talk to and to enter into community, form community, not only with your fellow peers who are on this call right now, but then also with students who are like sophomores, juniors, and asking them like, hey, what are you thinking about doing? How did that class go? I'm thinking about taking so-and-so's class. And so to really, or like, what are the student clubs and organizations or the organizing that's happening on campus that bring you life, that impassion you? And so I think I want to identify like, yeah, this is a really important time in terms of the studies, but the studies is not what's going to also get you through this, through the 4 years or the 2 years if you're a transfer student. And I really want to advocate for forming community with people that will help you to imagine really courageously, and then also providing the skills and the classes that you can take. So the advocate part is also something where I think it's a little bit strange, and this is no knock on anyone here, but like you have, from what I understand, your first year for first year students, you don't get to, like, you get placed into classes. Is that correct? Can I get a head nod? Or? And I think that, and I was ear hustling before I came on, or I'm hearing folks talking about like, oh, how do I change my classes? And I would say, you have to advocate for yourself in your studies. And like, there are a ton of classes that are amazing. There are amazing faculty. And if you're in a class, especially this first fall semester, and you're not feeling it, you need to advocate on behalf of yourself to take classes that bring you life. And that you can, if there's a seminar class that you are not really enjoying, you can take another seminar class with another faculty member. And so I think that it's really important to advocate for yourself, and you have that space in terms of not just relying on faculty. I think it's important to attend office hours, but it's also, there's a rich resource of knowledge from other students, other staff members that can also help guide you. And I think that being in community, and again, it's like through these student groups, it's through community, these organizations, and it's with like roommates, or in this particular context, the classes that you take, and trying to try the best to your ability of like trying to reach out and exchange numbers, contacts, so that we can form community in these really difficult times of a time period of Zoom. So that's what I would add to that. Dr. Miller or Dr. Hurst, do you have anything to add?
I think y'all have said most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to second what we just heard from Professor Viola, and just to name that no one will know the student experience like other students. We can share the resources and the knowledge that we have, but to actually know what it's like to be a student, I think the best thing you can do is to just be connected with other students, with your peers. My favorite thing is to see students that I have taught in class walking together on campus, and I'm going to miss that so much this fall. But you know, I'm thinking about like Daisy was in my seminar in SAILS last summer, and anytime I would see Daisy walking on campus with other students who were in that class, it just made me so excited to know that you all were staying connected and using each other as resources and support in that way. So you have this amazing model that comes out of HP, that comes out of SAILS. So I highly encourage you all to take advantage of that. And you've got great peer mentors here who are going to be able to help you with that process.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, no, I would completely agree. Just students, like, remember your peer mentors, like maybe they're not in the same major as you, but your peer mentors have such a big connection to the campus, and so utilize them just like our the professors are saying. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question, and we might go out of order for our professors. I'm going to send another one. And so this question is, college students have a lot on their plate. What are some strategies you would recommend for balancing aspects of life as students, so academics, family, work, etc.?
Yeah, I guess I can speak to that. I think it's going to be even more important this semester and this year than ever, especially for those of you who are going to be not living on campus, if you're going to be staying at home. I have a high schooler and I have an incoming college freshman, and it's hard even for me to be like, okay, mom is in the office and it's work time, versus, you know, checking on them to make sure, you know, what's going on over there. I like to be really organized with my time. I like to know, I try to map it out for the week where I'm going to be. I would really, really encourage you, either digitally or on paper, whatever your favorite medium is, make a calendar, make a schedule, know when you're supposed to be on Zoom, know when you're supposed to be, write down those office hours, pop into office hours, but also make time, because again, we're, with most folks not living on campus, that kind of campus connection is going to be a little weaker this year than usual. So also find that time to, as Professor Viola was saying, get everybody's numbers, text, snap, whatever y'all do these days. I'm not even so sure totally, but keep in touch with each other. Watch Netflix together from, your own houses, whatever it is, but, find that balance. And especially for those of you who will be staying at home, it's one of these things. And again, like I said, I have someone who's literally in your shoes, your parents, and I'm telling myself this because I have to have this talk with him soon. They have to know that college is your first priority, and it's going to be really important for you as a college student, even if you're still living at home, to have a real conversation with them about, when I'm in class, I'm in class, and I love you, and I'll maybe I'll be around for dinner tonight, maybe I won't, maybe I have homework. It's just to be real, open, and honest with them, and hope. And again, I'm saying this so I can hear it myself. Hope that they'll hear it, and you might have to have that conversation more than once. But the more you can do to kind of keep yourself organized and balanced, and make sure that the people because especially as first gen students, there are people that are rooting for you, and they want to know what's going on, and they want to be part of your process, and share with them your successes, but also make sure that they know to give you the space that you need to do your job. Yeah.
I'll chime in. I think that there's additional pressures of first gen students, students who come from immigrant parents, students who feel like they've always grown up feeling like othered, and that there's some pressures in the sense of like, not only is this for your own personal success, but then it's also the feeling of like, there's been a lot of sacrifice from my community and from my family to get me here. And then, so there's that. And then you're entering into a space that historically has been created for folks like you and for like us not to succeed. It wasn't made in your image. It wasn't grounded in your experiences. And I think that's so challenging. And that's why I think that this idea of being in community is super important, because when you go home after a session and now it's on Zoom as opposed to in class, it's not the same thing of being able to walk out with your friend or somebody who said something in class and being like, did you know, what did you think about so-and-so, whether that's a student or the professor? And you go home and then these conflicting feelings of the pressure of wanting to do well in school, but then also feeling unseen and unheard can really put people in a really, it's a really difficult space. And so I want to just reiterate the importance of like, how do we create community with one another in this context? And so one thing that I'm doing with a colleague of mine is we're creating sessions once a week where we're checking in with each other in the morning, and then we're doing writing sessions afterwards. And it's like, that's our kind of like a professor version of what like a writing or a homework group is. And so I would encourage something like that. I created that. Jazzy, you were in this session with our, in one of my classes where I'm like, I got nothing planned for class today, except for I'm creating a space for you all to work on your final projects. And like, come in, check in, and like, this is a time for us to check in, and then we're just gonna be in the same virtual space. If you have questions or if you wanna chat real quick. So I wanna just name those tensions with ultimately to say we have to also really be patient with one another and be patient with yourself. And it's like, school is so important, but also so is your health, your mental, your physical health, your emotional health. And so what does it mean that you all are entering into your first year during a global pandemic, and things are just completely out of whack? And so what is it that you need to do and be unapologetic in taking that time for yourself and for your community to be okay? I think is really important.
I appreciate you saying that, and I would love to sort of add to it what comes to mind for me as you're speaking. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about how this is a time where we are sort of constantly bombarded with input, with information. There's always an email going out updating us about something that's shifting or changing, or there's a headline or the news, or there's a protest happening outside of your home, or there's just a lot of input and a lot of stimuli and a lot of things that we are sort of being asked to hold simultaneously, and a lot of uncertainty that we're being asked to hold. And so I think as much as you can, whatever the practices are for you that allow you to process and get some output so that you're not holding everything. For me, that's journaling. For other people, it's running, or maybe it's music, or maybe it is connecting with a friend on the phone to just kind of download and get it all out. But, you know, whatever those practices are for you, you know, I find that in moments like this that are especially challenging, I really lean on those practices that I have cultivated and developed over time when things feel overwhelming. So maybe you know what those things are for you already. Maybe there are some things that you haven't tried, but you're interested in trying. But think about what those things are that you can incorporate into your days, and really make sure that you honor them and practice them as much as you can. College is a lot of work. And I think there are times when students are, even when they're not working, they're just thinking about the work that they're not doing and not actually resting. And I am just as guilty of that as a professor. I often find myself, when I'm not working, I'm stressing about the work that I'm not doing, and I'm not actually restoring anything. So I encourage you to find those practices that help you to restore. And then when you're doing them, really let yourself do them and engage with them. And then when you go to the work, you can go to the work. So that's what comes to mind for me with the question.
Professor Kurji, would you like to add anything, or I can move to the next question?
I think those were wonderful. I'm not sure I would add as much, except for, everybody is supposed to screw up in their first year of college and their first year at a new place. So forgive yourself, right? It's even weirder now. But you're not supposed to know how to register for classes. You're not supposed to know that you were supposed to add some class and you didn't have it on for your spring semester, right? You're gonna figure those things out as you go, and you don't have the hallway conversations, and you don't have the overhearing someone at that lunch table said X. That sounds cool, right? So you're gonna miss some things. You're gonna miss a homework assignment or a paper. Right? Forgive yourself, right? Our classes should be structured so that you can pass and you can do well in them, even if things go wrong, right? Our whole point here is not for you to get A's, right? Our point is for you to grow and learn and become sort of learn in a Lasallian environment, right? That's what we want. And it's not supposed to work the first time. So in addition to all these things that are just terrible and scary and different, if this were a regular freshman year or first year transferring into St. Mary's, things are going to go wrong, right? And just try to see if you can roll with the punches, and then figure out what to do when things go wrong, because they will, and forgive yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw a lot of head nods in our Zoom call, and so I know a lot of our students can really recognize themselves in all that you have to say. Kind of building off of what a lot of you were talking about, our next question, I'm going to send it in the chat as well, are kind of, like, I know you all were talking about, like, college is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of extra things. And so our next question is, what are some of the hidden expectations of college that you want our first gen students to be aware of?
I can go. It's gonna. Let me just say something that I didn't say in terms of when I was talking about advocating for yourself. I think that there needs to also be an unapologetic advocacy, in the sense of, with all the things that you're doing, advocating for yourself to your faculty for extensions. In the sense that I know that many of you are working, you're taking care of things at home with family, and on top of a priority now that is also school. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with emailing a faculty member, especially now, and saying, hey, I just need 3 more days to finish this final paper or to get this final assignment in. I can speak for myself, but also with some of my colleagues in my program, that there is an understanding that if students are asking for that, for advocating for themselves, automatically we're just like, yeah, for sure. These are a recognition of the tough times that we're in. So I just wanted to say that a hidden expectation. I think that, how do I say this in a way that's, I think that St. Mary's, and this is not separate from other institutions of higher ed, has done a lot in terms of, and there's a lot of promise and potential for supporting first-gen students of color. And yet I also think that there's also some difficulties. That's a part of the culture, but that's also going to arise. And I think that sometimes there's an expectation that when there are issues, I teach in a program that's advances equity, social justice, anti-racism. And sometimes I think that there are expectations from students that you need to speak on behalf of a group, a community. And I think that's reproducing forms of violence. And I think you can ultimately, you can always say no and not participate in reproducing that. And so I think that it's important to, part of this, especially this first year, is your academic identity is going to emerge and it's forming. And so I think that you don't have to participate in those kinds of conversations and feel like you're getting called out. I think that silence is okay as well. And so I say that in the sites that are dialogue based, whether that's seminar or in the humanities classes. I think it's okay to not participate in and feel the pressure of having to speak on behalf of broader experiences outside of Europe. So that's just me.
Would any of our other professors like to answer this question? If not, we have another, and then we'll, in 7 minutes, we'll be opening up to students.
Just a little bit about advocating for yourself. It is a real shame that things are set up so that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? The person in the professor's office or in emailing the professor is the one who gets heard, right? So I was very shy. I am very shy. I used to, people don't do this very much anymore because there's apps, but I used to have to practice calling for a pizza before I called for a pizza because I don't like strangers. I love students, but I don't like strangers, right? So the idea of sometimes talking to your professor, especially if some things didn't go that well, right? That's a hard thing, but the way the hierarchy Professor Viola was talking about, the way it's set up is that that's how you can help yourself, right? Or help your academic career, not yourself. And it's a hard thing. I am not gonna pretend it's not a hard thing. The first time I went to office hours as someone who's doing fairly well in a class, it was scary, right? I had to like navigate inside the building that I hadn't really been into. I had to, I was one of 200 in a lecture class, which you guys will never have to do. So I didn't think the professor didn't know who I was, and I had to introduce myself and all this stuff. Those are hard things just in and of themselves. So I am sorry that's the way the system is set up, but maybe knowing that will help you folks kind of figure out their way through it a little better.
Yeah, and I'll add that I think some of us grow up learning that our voice matters, and some of us grow up not learning that. Some of us come from places where we're used to being heard, and some of us come from places where we're not used to that being the case. And so I think, in a college setting, there are some students who are super used to using their voice and advocating and asking for exactly what they need. And then there are some of us for whom it really is a practice that we have to develop. This is where you can also, again, I think, lean on friends and peer mentors that you trust to say like, hey, I need to go have this conversation with this professor or with this office on campus. Can I run it by you? Can we role play? Or I wrote this email. Can you read it for me and see if this is, saying what I want to say? Maybe there are faculty on campus that you develop a trust and relationship with, that you can share those things with, and that they can brainstorm and work through those things with you. But just know that if you don't come in already knowing how to do that, or if you haven't come in having much experience feeling like your voice matters, that's a really common experience, and that there are people within community who are willing to work through that with you and practice that with you and support you in that process. So you don't have to feel like you have to engage in it by yourself alone, particularly if it's been really difficult for you in the past, or if you're exercising that muscle for the first time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have one more question, and this kind of builds off of what Professor Hurst was talking about. I know, Professor Hurst, in our last question, you had mentioned including your parents and like letting them know, like, hey, like I'm going to be in class during this time. It's really important to have open communication. And so our next question, which I'll be putting in the chat, is that for many first-gen students, including myself, families are really important to us. And so how can students build that connection between home and college, even if they are at home during college? Just how do you bridge that gap and also have conversations with them about what's going on in school?
I guess I'll start. I want to preface with just a piece of advice. One of the things that I was told, 15 years ago when I came to St. Mary's was, as a new faculty member, was find your people. And that's the same advice that I give to first year students. Find your people. It might be another student, it might be a resident advisor, it might be a faculty member, it might be a staff person, it might be someone who works in the dining hall. There are tons of people on campus, and there will be people that you will just kind of be drawn to and lean on them. And as Professor Miller was saying, there will be folks that you will have this, trusting relationship with, and go to them and ask them the questions. And I would say, kind of in segueing that to this question about home and college, I know that, when I was in college, literally like 3 decades ago, I can't even believe I just said that, but I talked to him, and this was before the day of cell phones. We had like a hall a phone in the hallway, and just the way that telecommunications were 3 decades ago, I called my parents and we spoke every Sunday. And we spoke for a really long time every Sunday. And we really didn't have the opportunity to speak during the week, just because it actually cost a lot of money to make long distance calls 30 years ago. And they really wanted to know what was going on. And it was pretty clear pretty quickly that they saw me as a different person now that I was a college student. And they wanted to have the same, they were my parents and they loved me, and they were, there was still very much that relationship, but they were recognizing that I was in a different stage, and they wanted to really be part of that. And they really wanted to, talk about my classes and know, more about the friends that I was meeting, and, who was my favorite professor and who was my least favorite professor. And, they know all that stuff. And so when I was home, for holidays and things, we could have really interesting conversations about what was going on. And so, and I had classmates that I was with that either didn't really ever talk to their parents once they got to school, or when they did, it was very perfunctory. It was very, yes, I'm fine, I'll talk to you later. And I was like, well, didn't they want to know about class? And they're like, no, they didn't really care. And my parents were like, what are you taking? What class? What time is it? And it was a great way for us, my parents and I, to kind of move our relationship to that next level of kind of being adults in a relationship. And they want your family is so incredibly proud of you, and they are here on this journey with you. And keep them in the loop, but as I said from previously, keep them in the loop, but also let them know where the boundaries are. I'll pass it off to whoever else wants to hop in.
I have nothing to add, and just want to reaffirm the congratulations. Like, it's a huge victory for not only yourselves, but for your families and that your communities that you're here. So I just want to say welcome and congratulations. And I'm excited to be supporting and working and learning with you all soon.
Okay, so I think we are going to move into, we have about 9 minutes left, so we're gonna go into having our students ask questions. And so students, if you wanna utilize the chat function, if you wanna like maybe raise your hand so you can speak, whatever way you feel most comfortable asking those questions, we have about 9 minutes. Any questions from any students?
I want to ask, do any of you guys have like a certain thing that you do every year that's like your favorite part about teaching?
I used to wear the same dress every day for the first day of school. but after like 4 or 5 years, I'm like, yeah, this really isn't going to work anymore. It just, the style was so completely out of whack. And what I always do in the beginning with all of my classes, lower division classes, upper division classes, FIAC sessions, is to really, I want my students to know each other. You are at St. Mary's because you want to be at a small school. You are at St. Mary's because you want there to be a low ratio of students to faculty. And I want my students, even if they never see each other again in their 4 years, I want everyone to know each other's names. I want people to address people by name when we ask questions. So we actually spend quite a bit of time in that first week of really getting to know each other, learning names, where are you from? What's your major? And just kind of trying to establish that, because I mean, particularly in sociology and ethnic studies, sometimes we're talking about things that might be out of people's comfort levels, sex, sexuality, class, race, gender, and kind of establishing that that community, which is a word I know we've used quite a bit today. It's establishing community, establishing that we're all in this together to to learn something is really, it's important, and I always do that right at the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a question for Professor Viola. How do you get into the Justice, Community, and Leadership program?
So for Justice, Community, and Leadership, or for any major, the first thing that I would recommend is taking a class or the introduction class to find out, oftentimes the introduction provides a broad overview of some of the questions that we're exploring. And then to declare a major, it's really easy. You'll do that at the end of your spring semester, where you basically just fill out a quick document online. And so changing your major is really easy, and declaring it is really easy, adding a minor. And that's something you'll do in lockstep with your faculty advisor. And so many of you are going to be working with Professor Hurst this fall semester through FIAC, and then she can help guide you. But then definitely your spring semester, you want to, if you haven't taken an intro course or a course within an area that you're really interested in, the spring is where you would take those classes, and then you can declare a major. So hopefully that answers the question around that. Definitely JCL 10 is a good class to take if you're interested in the major. And then going back to Gloria Fernandez's question about what is it that we enjoy with teaching, one of the things that I really enjoy and I'm going to miss is the being in the physical space in the classroom. I think that Professor Hurst was speaking to some of the same spirit that what I love about being at a smaller institution is getting to know you all, getting to continue the conversations as we're walking from class to class. Even like random times where students are like, hey, Professor Viola, can I sit and eat with you? You know, I'm sitting outside having lunch. And so that's what I really enjoy is the community building. And then that enables deeper discussions around the topics that we explore in class. Hopefully that answered both of the questions.
I had a sub question to my question. Will the Justice and Community and Leadership give me any form of foundation? I'm interested in going to law school after graduating. So will that give me a foundation into not necessarily law, but like into around that realm?
Yeah. So my colleagues and I have written letters of support for folks who've gotten into law schools, multiple law schools in environmental law, immigration, family law. And so you could be in any kind of degree to any major to do that. What I'll plug is there's a law and politics minor where a lot of students take that to get an understanding a little bit more about law and politics. And so I would plug that. But for sure, students who are interested in, again, the issues of equity, justice, anti-oppression, I would definitely say, and if you were thinking about law as an avenue, like JCL, ethnic studies, I think those are really important, or those could be good majors towards those pursuits.
And then I know that there are certain classes that kind of overlap within majors. What would you say, or what would, and you know, and this goes from any of the professors, your recommendation on, I have an interest in a lot of things. What would you say about like you going on to create your own major? And if that's even a possibility in St. Mary's, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, and I've absolutely had students who have done that. I've had students who have double majored. I've had students who have split majored, and I've had students, a couple, who have created their own major. If you know, the most important thing that I would say, if that's the direction that you see yourself going, is to find a faculty person that you can work with that can help you create a 4-year plan that's really going to, you know, to kind of see, you know, what classes are available. What am I trying to get, and to create a 4-year plan with your advisor is going to be super, super important. And then, you know, that person will be able to help you put your proposal in and do all the paperwork that's going to happen with it. Yeah, definitely a possibility, and I think most of us have probably had experience doing that as well.
Thank you.
All right, so we're down to our last minute, and we want to be conscious of everyone's time. If professors, if you have any closing thoughts, if you'd like to add anything else, we just want to thank you so much for being here and sharing space with us and just dropping all this knowledge and for us. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, and welcome everybody, and can't wait to meet you in person, whatever that's going to look like.
Likewise, thank you all and fellow panelists too, for providing me with some energy for today and moving into the semester. So thank you.
Really great to be with you all, to meet you virtually. Thank you for engaging and participating and asking great questions. And I'll look forward to, even if it's virtual, to staying connected with you all. And please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm super accessible if you have any questions or things that you want to keep thinking through or talking through. I think I can speak for all of us that we're happy to be engaged with you in that way. So again, congratulations and welcome to St. Mary's.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I know this is tough. We're all going to get through it together. Just best of luck with everything. You're already have this nice step up with the SAILS program. Try to keep in touch with everybody here that you can. Your program assistants and your PMs, they're here for you too over the course of the years. And So are we. So are all the professors that you're going to meet and all the TAs. So just welcome. We're so happy that you're here. We hope that this semester and this year will go well. And it was lovely to meet you.
Thank you all again. See you all soon. For our students, we have a break right now, and the next thing happening at 3:30 is our transfer student session, and so please come if you would like to learn more about that. All right, thank you.